this first meeting tonight, as Pat already said, we have two fundamental goals tonight, right? One is to understand the decision-making process and the ground rules that we're going to use, which we'll move through in a few minutes. And then the second is to discuss and explore both the guiding principles that came out of a lot of these constituent meetings that were held throughout the community, right, over the last few months, as well as to understand the technical criteria that we're using to look at sites, which becomes really important. And what we want to make sure of is that by the time we leave the meeting tonight, there's clarity about both. Because these are the building blocks, these are the foundational building blocks for everything else we're going to do in this process, okay? Second meeting, when we come back on April 12th, next week, is we're going to look at what are the potential site options, and there are a lot of them, and we're going to work through all of them. We want to make sure that they're all on the table so that we can all see them. So this meeting is primarily for understanding what those site options are, so you can see what they are, to allow time for us to talk about them and ask clarifying questions. And in this meeting, what you'll be provided with is literally a binder that George Benson and his team has put together that actually has background on a lot of these sites that you'll be able to take home and read in between sessions to explore and think about. And then we're going to come back in the next meeting and actually discuss much more deeply. So the second meeting really, again, is to build the groundwork for what are the potential sites, and for George and his team to be able to walk you through those sites so you know what they are. We're going to come back after that meeting in the third meeting, and we're going to work through additional questions about the sites. We're going to hopefully reach agreement on what sites are viable for us to move forward to talk about more in depth. And then we'll spend more time in this third meeting analyzing and talking about exploring the different pros and cons and choices about those viable sites, whatever they might be, whatever we identify moving forward, right? So at each step, we're identifying how we want to move forward. Fourth meeting is we'll continue to talk about these viable sites and air them out, both thinking about applying both the guiding principles to each site, each viable site, and the technical criteria, so you can see those. And if possible, we'll move to a decision. And as Pat said, what's important is under what conditions can we make a decision. Now, if we can't reach a decision in that fourth meeting, what I've said to Pat and to others I've been talking to about this is I don't believe in forcing these things. And so we've reserved this fifth meeting to make sure that we have added time if we need to come back and spend more time exploring these sites so that we're not rushing to a decision, which I think is very important. Okay? I want to say a couple more things about this and then ask if you have any questions. How are we going to move through this? My general belief in working with large groups is that it's very hard for everyone to agree on everything, right? That's a very difficult test to meet. So the test I use for this is our test of common ground. Can we reach common ground on how we want to move together? And the test I often give to people is, can you live with where we're moving? Can you live with it? Right? Not do you agree with every part of it, not do you agree with every decision that's been made so far, but can you live with where we're going? And as you all know, I don't need to tell you this, but there may be some of us at the end of this process who don't agree with the final decision. And I just want to be very clear and transparent about that. We may not be able to get full agreement from all 28 of us all 28 of you sitting around the table. And that may be where we are. Now, I tend not to rely on voting because my bias, again, is to work through these things together. But if we get to certain points, I will ask for a sense of the group to see where we are, just to gauge where we are. And I want you to know that that might be coming as well. All right? Any questions so far? Any questions about the process?